The Hermes antitrust lawsuit, is it all just a joke? Or are these plaintiffs onto something? If you're an Hermes fan here in the United States, then you are probably very familiar with a lot of the concepts we're going to be talking about today, that being the exclusivity of the Hermes Birkin. Now, as an Hermes enthusiast myself, I was inundated when I was trying to search with, the probability of being able to buy in store, how I would buy in store. I mean, there are literally guides that break down everything you should wear, how you should build a relationship with an essay, how to even get an appointment in the first place. And when that fails, a lot of us Americans end up doing the whole route in Paris, where we waste entire vacations just trying to get a leather appointment in hopes that we'll ultimately be offered a Birkin. With the exclusivity of the Birkin, many do try and play this game, and many ultimately lose. But before we dive into all that, hey guys, my name's Caleb. I post luxury and lifestyle related content every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So if that's something you're into, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Consider joining our membership. We have an awesome engaged community, Discord, extra access, early access to new videos, member meetups, you name it, it is literally in the membership. So before we dive into the whole lawsuit, let's build a foundation of understanding. What is this about? What are they alleging? What's the complaint? And how does this all tie into the most exclusive handbag, the Hermes Birkin? Now, to understand the entire lawsuit and what it encompasses, we first have to understand the pre-spend, or the quota purchases, if you will. Now, pre-COVID, this was a very different game. And I think here in the States, we've only been doing the pre-spend, and I put that in air quotes for a reason, for probably about a decade now. Ultimately, in the early 2000s, late 90s, we worked on the waitlist system where hopefuls would walk in, tell their essay what they wanted, they'd write it down, and then hopefully they'd get the call within 12 months, couple of years, and they'd have their Birkin. Well, now we've moved on beyond that. As Hermes, the company itself, grows, adds more boutiques, more locations, the amount of Birkins are just that much more scarce. In fact, sadly, we've moved away from bench-made Birkins to now kind of an assembly line situation, but that's another video for another day. But pre-COVID, this whole pre-spend was typically a 1-to-1 ratio, or in some cases, a 1.5-to-1 ratio, which if an average Birkin is $10,000, well, then you have to spend $10,000 in other categories to be offered to buy that $10,000 Birkin. Well, now as scarcity grows, the demand grows, that ratio can oftentimes be 3-to-1 or 5-to-1, depending on the boutique or the type of bag you want to buy, like Minnie Kelly looking at you. Based on this pre-spend, this is where the lawsuit, this is what they're claiming is tying purchases. Now, I can understand from a business standpoint why Hermes would want to do this. Hermes is a wonderful house. They make a ton of products across a ton of different categories. We have shoes, housewares, equestrian, pet, furniture, scarves, silks, ready-to-wear, handbags, leather goods, you name it. They make a full catalog of a luxurious lifestyle product, and oftentimes they are stunning. But I would also have to ask myself, with how important the Birkin, and we're using the term Birkin loosely, I think in the lawsuit they also included Birkin to mean like Birkin, Kelly, Constance, all the quota bags, if you will. We're just gonna say Birkin loosely today. For those who are just interested in the Birkin, they may not be a well-rounded buyer, so they're probably not paying attention to these other categories. I have to kind of ask myself, with that amount of knowledge, would people be buying in these other categories if they weren't forced to? And I think that's where we end up with a lot of Birkin bait sitting on resale sites, pre-loved sites, a lot of unworn or on sandals and new with box Evelyns. Those can be found pretty easily out there, and I don't know. And aside from the pre-spend, listen guys, the sales associates or your client advisor is not paid commission for the Birkin or the Kelly, but they do make 3% on other categories. So for your sales associate, there's literally no incentive for them to sell you that Birkin or Kelly, at least monetarily. Now, as a consumer, if you do choose to go the whole pre-spend route, the quota, the 3-to-1, the 5-to-1, what's gonna help get you there the fastest? Well, first and foremost, furniture and fine jewelry. Those are oftentimes, they can be as much as 6 figures, so that's gonna really tip you into buying the Birkin or the Kelly a lot sooner than if you were doing like an Oron, an Evelyn, a silk, a scarf, those kind of things, they do help. But I think in order to kind of get there faster, if you're gonna buy shoes, maybe skip the Oron or the sneakers and go straight for either jumping boots or exotic shoes. Same with housewares, just skip the porcelain, go straight to the chest set if you can. That's gonna get you to that pre-spend quota a lot faster. But for those of us that don't want to do that, myself included, what are our other options aside from going to Paris? Well, that's where this lawsuit kind of comes into play. So speaking of the lawsuit, this was filed this week, and it was 2 plaintiffs in California against Hermes. Basically, like, this is a good read. It's 17 pages, so it's a quick read. I'll give you that. But they filed this in California after they complained that the defendant, Hermes, was tying products and creating a monopoly based off of the Birkin. Now, if they had actually spelled Birkin correctly every single time they brought it up in the paperwork, then I'd take it a little bit more seriously. Birkins with 2 I's, not an E, just saying. Now, with this claim that Hermes is illegally tying other products with the Birkin purchase, I was like, okay, well, I'm not a lawyer. I'll be the first to tell you I'm not a lawyer. So I had to look up, I searched through the FTC and what their definition of illegal tying was, and basically it's pretty cut and dry. Like, I have this product that you probably don't want, but I'm going to force you to buy it, so you can have this product that you do want, and you may or may not get it. They're trying to say that in doing so, that they're trying to gain a competitive edge in the marketplace and put out other competitors for those other categories. But I think in reflection, in retrospect, if you will, who exactly is the competition that they're trying to put out? Like, a lot of people make shoes, a lot of people make housewares, a lot of people make fragrances. Like, there's really nothing aside from the actual Birkin itself in the catalog of products that Hermes offers that would put another company at a disadvantage if they sold more of a certain category, if you will. Are you following me? By buying the Oron sandals, you're not necessarily putting out Birkenstock, because that's not really the same thing at the end of the day. The plaintiffs also made some kind of out-of-the-box claims as well, if you will. They said that the Birkin was not available online. However, everything else the house produces is, which you know is not true, I know is not true. Like, sometimes you can't even get a Calvi card holder online. Like, it just kind of depends on the supply and the demand and what they drop and when they drop it. You can't really say that they're cornering the market in this aspect, because think about it, Chanel does it. And even though there are literally thousands of products on Louis Vuitton's website, they do the same thing. Like, not everything is listed at all times. They also claim that when it comes to trying to purchase the Birkin in store, that once they made these other ancillary purchases, they didn't get what they wanted. It makes me kind of wonder, like, were they asking for like a Birkin 25 in Barinia? Or were they just, willing to accept, like a 30 Epsom in some heinous color? Like, what were they trying to accept? Do you know what I mean? Also, they claim that the Birkin is never on display in the store for sale, and it's not. Like, a lot of their leather handbags are just in the display cases with the little sign that says for display only. And they also said that the customer has no way of ordering or purchasing said Birkin to their exact specifications. So it makes me kind of wonder if they're not that well versed in the special order system, that process, which, I mean, does take a little bit of a pre-spend. Like, you have to be offered that service. But at the end of the day, they were claiming that only the clients deemed worthy were available to purchase these bags. Listen, I don't have a whole lot of experience in the Hermes store, but I've heard from friends that they were told point blank that yes, there is kind of a pre-spend that you should do in order to get the offer. I don't know that anyone ever outright says, hey, you want to buy a Birkin? Well, you need to spend $20K in these other categories first, and then I might offer you one. I don't think a sales associate has ever point blank said that. And if they have, it's probably just kind of like a sidebar with the client that they had a relationship with. Also, with this pre-spend in mind, these dollars don't count if you buy them on the website or if you purchase out of the country. So you do, even though you're making purchases within the brand, they don't always count, which could lead to more evidence that they are technically tying, but I mean, tying's not really illegal per se. Now, they also hilariously claim that Hermes has spent millions in advertising the Birkin and they've only sold thousands. I don't know the last time I saw a Birkin ad or a billboard. If you've seen one, let me know. But I think I've seen like the Aqua with like menswear when they're showing that heavily, or more often than not, it's just like the Bolide. But I don't know. Like, I've never really seen an advertised Birkin anytime recently, but it's been a minute since I've cracked open one of my Town and Country, so I might be missing that, but let me know in the comments. Have you seen a Birkin in advertising lately? Now, to play devil's advocate with this whole tying pre-spin thing that we pretend isn't real, but when you're buying things online, that doesn't count towards your pre-spin quota. And when you buy things out of the country that are on the same database as your home country or your home boutique, those also don't count towards your pre-spin quota. So we can pretend the pre-spin doesn't exist all we want, but it is technically there, I believe. With the pre-spin in mind, the plaintiffs and their legal team, they're also claiming that this has given H a monopoly to increase the price of the Birkin, and that is obviously not the case. Like, there's 25 to 30 years of data there where Hermes was raising the price before the waitlist, during the waitlist, after the waitlist, during pre-spend. And we're also not taking into account that Chanel does ludicrous price increases almost biannually at this point. So there's a lot there. I think at the end of the day, this whole class action attempt, I could see the benefits and I can see where they're coming from, but also at the end of the day, I think it's really reaching in my opinion. I asked you guys over my Instagram and a lot of you weighed in, which was really cool. Now, a lot of my followers were in agreement with the plaintiffs in the class action and how it's BS to do the pre-spend, and just as many were in favor of Hermes and the pre-spend. And at the end of the day, it's just elitist entitlement to sue a luxury goods manufacturer for not selling you a $10,000 handbag. And honestly, at the end of the day, monopolies in tying aren't always illegal. And just because there's a high demand, Hermes can't be forced to produce that many more Birkins. And I think as a Birkin owner and collector, I wouldn't want them to anyway. I think that, you know, this is an investment, but it's an investment because of its scarcity and demand, not because anyone can just, you know, with extra $10,000, $15,000 can go and buy a Birkin. Like at the end of the day, that would ruin the entire essence of the Birkin. And with the term, you know, spend tying, you can't really pinpoint a competitor who's being hurt by the practice. So at the end of the day, the tying isn't illegal. Like I said before, several manufacturers make flip-flops, several manufacturers make handbags, several manufacturers make scarves, and no one's being put out because we're being forced to buy extra scarves or little ancillary items on our journey towards the Birkin. Like you can't really claim that that is negative tying. I want to know, what are your thoughts on this class action lawsuit? Will you be signing up? If you've been told no in the last 4 years, call your attorney because you can join the lawsuit. Sound off in the comments. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's silly? Are you on the team of the plaintiffs? Like what are we thinking here as a group, as a community? And I'm excited to see what you guys have to say. I think this could be a kind of divisive, in a positive way, subject to speak about. So let's get a conversation going. And until next time, guys, stay safe, have fun. Good luck getting your Birkin. Bye-bye.